Alrighty, so it's been a while since we've done a News of the Week episode because there hasn't really been a lot of news that has happened in the MLS world. But with that being said, this week we definitely had some outgoing transfer that happened around MLS, and one of the biggest outgoing transfer is Georgie Mahevich. He is going to be moving to Europe at the end of the season, and he is going to be going to AZ Alkmarr, but he will be remaining with Montreal for the remaining of the season. Now, I kind of mentioned this a little bit in my preview talk about, or actually not the preview, but in the review talk about how Montreal did not have Georgie Mahevich in this game, but most of that has to do with him potentially going to the Netherlands and going to basically complete a medical with AZ Alkmaar, and he's going to be probably returned to Montreal for the remaining of the season before he moved on with the club, and that seems like it is the case, though the amount that Montreal is going to receive is only $6 million, which I feel like that's a little bit low considering Georgie Mahevich has really been kind of an MVP caliber of a player, and that I think if he never had that injury that he suffered during the middle of the June, we can talk about him, between him and Driussi, in terms of who is going to be the MVP of this season. And not to mention the fact that I feel like he definitely needs to get a chance in September in the U.S. men's national team friendly camp, because, you know, he was going to do so in June. I think he was picked as one of the 26 players that was going to be part of that team, but of course he got injured, and that, you know me, in terms of my hype with Georgie Mahevich and how I've mentioned many times, I feel that he needs to get another shot with the U.S. men's national team, and he has a big chance to do so in September. And it's also good on him to finally make that move to Europe, because it's been kind of long overdue. We've been talking about how he is going to eventually move on to Europe, though AZ Alkmaar, it is still a respectable team in the Eredivisie. I mean, it's not as big as those well-known teams like Feyenoord, Ajax, or even PSV, but it's still a relatively respectable team. Don't forget, this is a team that of course were leading the Eredivisie, but unfortunately they were leading it during that unfortunate year in 2020 when the Eredivisie was cancelled, and we would have never known if they actually won their first title in a very long time. Now, moving on in the next news, we got LAFC transferring Brian Rodriguez to Club America. Now, this did not talk about exactly how much the cost is. They just said that it's an undisclosed amount, and anytime when that, of course, happened, it kind of frustrates me, because it's like, come on, MLS, you got to tell me exactly how much it is. And when they talk about how Georgie Mahevich, of course, moving to AZ Alkmaar, the league website doesn't even tell me the amount too. I had to kind of dig in, and I did the same thing with the Brian Rodriguez transfer, but I couldn't find exactly how much LAFC, of course, got for Brian Rodriguez. But nevertheless, I think this one was kind of on the writings on the wall, the fact that, Brian Rodriguez haven't got a lot of time with LAFC, and he's been kind of dropping down the pecking order because LAFC is just really stacked right now on the attack, and that you just had a sense that he was going to be eventually move on, though, going to Club America, that was definitely not one destination I thought he was going to go. I thought maybe he was going to go back to South America, or maybe LAFC decided to pull the trigger and basically sell him off to Europe and get whatever amount it is. But, still going to Club America, a team that we know that it is one, if not the most famous and biggest team in Liga MX, and that, again, I don't know exactly what the amount is, but if Liga MX team decide to sell player to MLS and they overcharge them, I feel like MLS team should kind of do the same thing as kind of a retaliation. So I'm assuming it's probably going to be a big amount. But also the good news for LAFC is that wasn't he occupied one of the DP slot? And if that is the case, LAFC have an open DP slot again. I mean, this is just so unfair right now. Like, the old saying, the rich get richer. It just feels like that's the case with LAFC, because they literally just got rid of a player on the DP contract that kind of dropped down to the pecking order, and now they open it up another one, despite the fact that they've already looked very stacked and look like that is the most potent attack in the league. So yeah, this feels very unfair, but also at the same time just goes to show what LAFC has done in terms of them being probably the best front office in terms of constructing a winning team. Just don't look at what happened last year. Last year was kind of just an omelet. Now their intercity rival LA Galaxy also did some moves, although they of course signed a player this this past couple of days where they, well, actually not past couple of days, this was actually announced yesterday, where they signed Uruguayan international center back Martin Casseries. Now, he is a guy that he is, I think, around in his mid-30s, and it's kind of in his twilight of his career, but it is a guy that I think will be a good signing for the Galaxy, consider they need some leadership in that backline. You know, that one of the reasons why their backline has been so bad this season, and it's always been the case, is that they haven't really have that leadership so far this season. Well, actually, they have leadership before and have some veteran presence, but it seems like there's a curse in terms of that backline for the Galaxy, where no matter who they put, it always still sucks. But at least in this year's case, you know, I feel like the reason why their backline hasn't been good is because, you know, there isn't a lot of veteran presence there, and there are a bunch of young guys in that backline too. So getting a guy that you know, he's a Uruguayan international, he's a guy that has a lot of experience in terms of being that leader in the back line. I think this is definitely a good signing, and I've even heard people say this is kind of a low risk and high reward kind of signing for the LA Galaxy. Now, the New England Revolution signed midfielder Nacho Gil from FC Cartica because, of course, we need to have another brother tenure in MLS. I swear, MLS right now, we probably have the most brother tantrum out of any league in the world, because, you know, we know about the Char brother, the Rodon brother, the Nealis brother, and now we have the Heel brother joining the list. Now, I'm not sure if this is just kind of maybe a publicity stunt for them to, well, actually, not a publicity stunt is not the right word to say, but maybe just kind of just for a marketing reason that, hey, we got another brother tenure, and we should of course cherish it. But again, you know, we'll see whether or not if he is good. I haven't heard a lot about him, and whether or not if he is a little bit, but is right on par of what his brother is. I mean, probably not, because Carlos Gil is just an MVP kind of caliber kind of player, and it will take a lot for his brother to try to take that title away from him. But, you know, I think maybe this might be just used for depth, but also just kind of use that, hey, you know, every team seems to have a brother right now. We're just going to do the same thing here too. Now, NYCFC have claimed Matheus Pellegrini off waiver. Remember Matheus Pellegrini and how he was one of the first signing for Inter Miami, and like most Inter Miami first signing, and a lot of those players coming into the expansion roster for Inter Miami, it has not gone well, and that's kind of the case with Pellegrini, and that seems like NYCFC want to get a shot. Now, I don't think this is a bad idea, because, you know, I'm pretty sure NYCFC saw what Philly did when they decided to get Julian Carranza from Inter Miami, and how that definitely panned out, and they're going to try to do the same thing with Pellegrini. And if they can do so, then it is a huge indictment of Inter Miami, and in terms of how much of a disaster that was in terms of their first ever season and building their roster. Because, you know, we already talked about Carranza being an absolute bona fide star, and I kind of had a feeling that was the case, but even then, I actually didn't expect it worked that well, and that, again, it feels like it's highway robbery, the fact that they only got him for $500,000 general allocation money, and that he is now becoming one of the biggest for this team. But again, it's a huge indictment of Inter Miami, and just their the way that they, of course, built their expansion roster, and how chaotic that first season, of course, was. But we'll see whether or not if Pellegrini can do much better now that he, of course, joined a team that I assume will have better. He will, of course, be in terms of, you know, getting better coaching than during his time with Inter Miami. Though, you know, NYCFC just had a change of head coach, and so for Nick Cushing, you know, during his early time, like many NYCFC head coach, are struggling in terms of trying to get his philosophy into this team. Now, going back to LAFC, LAFC is nearing a loan move of defender Mamadou Fall to Villarreal. In fact, at the time of this recording, this deal actually was complete. When I wrote the notes for all these news of the week, this was still kind of a rumor, but it is pretty much now complete that Mamadou Fall is going to be going to Villarreal. And just like what I said about Brian Rodriguez, Mamadou Fall was kind of the victim in terms of them being very stacked in the back line too, and that he really never got more minutes ever since some of the starters in that back line started to be healthy and kind of took his spot away. But nevertheless, I think he is definitely one of the more exciting defender, and one of the more exciting young defender in the league. And even though there's times where he does make mistakes, that's kind of the case with young defender. It does take a while for them to, of course, mature. And him going to Villarreal, a very well-known team in La Liga, it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see will, of course, work out, and especially with the way that as I mentioned with Villarreal being a big team. I don't know if they know to be a club in terms of giving young guys a chance. I mean, I know usually when players in MLS moves to the Bundesliga, that of course is the case. Not sure about that when those young players go to La Liga, but certainly wish him the best there. And that again, if it doesn't work out, this is only a loan move, and LAFC of course can still recall him from loan and getting back him from this team. Though that being said, I think there's also like an option to buy. So if he does do well with Villarreal, most likely LAFC is going to get some big amount of money off of this deal. Now, FC Cincinnati has agreed a long-term contract extension. I actually forgot to wrote down the name of the player, but they have agreed a long-term contract extension of Brandon Vazquez through 2025. So there's talk of Brandon Vazquez potentially moving on from FC Cincinnati, and there's a lot of talk of him potentially going down to Liga MX and going to Chivas. Well, yeah, that rumor is now pretty much dead because Cincinnati has agreed a long-term contract extension of Brandon Vazquez, and they'll keep him till 2025. Though that being said, I think this is also kind of a move where Cincinnati just gotta make sure that they lock up their star striker for this long, so that in case if they do sell him off to another team, the other team will probably have to pay a handsome amount to do so. I mean, we've seen this before in MLS where teams tend to lock up players to long-term contract, and if they do decide to sell them the very next season, then they don't have to worry about how maybe some teams might decide to lower the price because the contract is started to expire, and that again, this is why we've seen a lot of teams, and really in general in the world, where teams like to extend contract extension to players that they might think about selling in the future, so that they can of course keep that marketing value compared to when the contract extension could be expired in soon. Now, there's sources saying that New England Revolution is set to finalize a new contract to Matt Polster, and it seems like this also, just like what it was a couple of days ago when there was a rumor that Brandon Vazquez was going to receive a new multi-year contract extension, and it eventually came true. That's going to be the same case with Matt Polster. I think New England is going to re-sign him to a new contract. He's been a force in that midfield for the Revs ever since he came into this team, and that I wouldn't be surprised he of course will eventually get his new contract. And it's not if he's going to get a new contract, but it's when that official announcement is going to make. But now moving on in terms of next news, and now talk about injury news. We did have some injury news surrounding some big name players. One of them is Cristian Roldan, and he is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks after groin surgery for the Seattle Sounders. So another big setback for the Sounders at a rate where, it just feels like maybe that CCL win that they of course had. That you know how the MLS gods, they want some payment in terms of that CCL win. Yeah, this feels like it's kind of one of the payment, and that the Sounders have suffered a lot of injuries to some of their key players, and that Cristian Roldan will be the latest player, and that most likely with him out 4 to 6 weeks, and with decision day coming in about that span of time, there could be a case where if the Sounders don't make it to the playoffs, Cristian Roldan could be out for the season, and that really sucks for the Sounders, especially with them trying to push to make it to the playoffs. But this is where they need to they always kind of have that mentality of next man up, and we'll see who of course will cover him. Most likely, I would say it could be Daniel Leyva that might cover Cristian Roldan's spot, but I won't be surprised. There might be another name that I can't kind of come off of my mind that could be in that replacement of where Roldan is in that spot. And again, midfield is one of the positions where the Sounders have been decimated by injury. I mean, I don't even need to mention of their star midfielder João Paulo to not realize that a lot of Sounders fans don't want to remember what happened of him back in that CCL final and that CCL run. Now, the Colorado Rapids for Yaya Toure is done for the season with a torn ACL, and this definitely is kind of sad to see, because this is a kid that has definitely started to get some more minutes, and that he has definitely have some raw potential to be a decent player for the Rapids, and now he's done for the season for torn ACL. Like, that always sucks when young players that they show some kind of promise, and next thing you know, a big setback with a torn ACL. So let's just hope that he of course gets a speedy recovery, and that he of course will come back stronger, because there's times where young players might of course suffer a bad injury like a torn ACL. It can be tough for them to, of course, recover. Though it might be faster to recover compared to maybe older players that, of course, suffer a torn ACL. Speaking of injuries, Orlando City forward Alexandre Pato is going to be undergoing knee surgery and is going to be done for the season, and most likely done for in his time with Orlando City, and maybe even in his career too, because you talk about a guy that has been the most cursed player in terms of injury, not just in MLS, but pretty much in the world of soccer or football. Alexandre Pato is right at the top of that list. I mean, this guy just cannot catch a break in terms of injuries, and that, I don't want to say it's kind of a fitting way to basically say that if Pato does decide to hang up his boot because of this knee surgery, that it sums up his career, but in a harsh way to say, it kind of is, because this is just how many injuries that he's suffered throughout his career is just incredible. And that, yeah, unfortunately for Pato, not only the fact that he's done for the season, but like what I said when he suffered that injury a couple of weeks ago, I said that could be the last time we see him in an Orlando City jersey, because he has really not performed well for Orlando City this season, and they were going to offload him either way, whether if he suffered an injury or not. Now, the MLS Disciplinary Committee, or DISCO in short, suspend Georgie Mahevich due to embellishment / diving, if you want to have the informative way to say it. And this is not a big surprise, because I talk about that in that game between them and oh god, I can't think of who Montreal faced in the last game. I think it was it New England that it faced? Yeah, it might be the Revs. Yeah, it looked like that was a dive to win the penalty, and he didn't need to dive. Like, the thing is, the team was already up 3-0. You don't need to embellish and commit a or draw a penalty when your team is already up 3-0, and your team is pretty much already secure 3 points. So in some way, this is a really dumb decision that Mahevich did. I mean, he kind of fooled the referee, and he got rewarded by a goal, but the MLS gods would definitely want to swing the hammer. And that, again, I think this is one of the first times I've seen a player get suspended because of embellishment, but I've heard that Mahevich has been suspended or has been fined by embellishment before. So I think the league, knowing the fact that they're really cracking down in terms of players embellish and diving in the box, and that if you are a repeat offender, then yeah, you're going to get the suspend hammer, and that of course is the case for Mahevich here. Now, moving on to the next news, and kind of talk about a better news. Julian Carranza, of course, winning the Player of the Week. Again, just as I said before, with Julian Carranza, of how, I knew he was going to fit well with the Union, but even then, I didn't think he was going to fit this well with the Philadelphia Union, scoring a hat-trick in that game against DC, and really becoming the new owner of DC United this season. And yeah, well, he deserved to get the Player of the Week honor. And then, of course, moving on into news that isn't really related to MLS, but it's certainly a news to talk about, is that CBS will be airing the NWSL Championship on primetime after sponsor intervention. Now, obviously, I think this is kind of embarrassing for the NWSL, the fact that, or not the NWSL, but more on CBS in general, the fact that I know for the past couple of NWSL Championship, they have been broadcasting this game very early. In fact, there was one of the game where they, of course, had it at Providence Park, where they had it like around 10 a.m. in the morning. Like, that is way too early for a championship game. And I get it. Yes, there's some big event that CBS might have to broadcast later, but I feel like this is kind of ridiculous, the fact that they didn't put this on prime time, and it takes a sponsor to basically intervene to tell CBS that, yeah, we're going to pull out of this if you don't put this game on prime time, and that, yeah, CBS have no choice. They're going to be putting this on prime time. And it's also good to kind of continue to expand the interest of NWSL, because NWSL has started to grow these past couple of years and has definitely gained a lot of interest around the soccer public here in this country. Now, all I'll say is that I will be able to attend an NWSL game if only they have one in the Bay Area. Like, for a long time, I feel like they clearly should have been bringing an NWSL team in the Bay Area, because the Bay Area is also another area where it could be a hotbed in terms of women's soccer, and we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case in the future. But moving on into the final news of this news of the week is Orlando City. They have announced that they have sold out the U.S. Open Cup final versus the Sacramento Republic, and it's great to see that of course is the case, because it's also it's just to show you that I think this year's U.S. Open Cup final might be the most anticipated one in the past couple of years, probably maybe since well, I would say that maybe you could say that this could be the most anticipated U.S. Open Cup final in its competition since when MLS basically was in this competition first back in 1996, or maybe even go all the way back to 99 when Rochester Rhino, of course, won it, or 2008 when Charleston Battery, of course, becoming the last non-MLS team to make it to the final. Because again, this is a kind of a story between, I don't want to say David versus Goliath, because for Orlando City, this is also a team that is looking to trying to get their first ever trophy in their franchise history, and this is a big opportunity to do so in this one. I mean, this is, I think, the second opportunity they had, because they had that opportunity in the MLS's back tournament against the Portland Timbers, and then they of course lost that one. But now this is a bigger opportunity in a way where they can play in front of their home fans. Though that being said, they shouldn't be underestimate the power of Sacramento Republic, because I feel like for Sacramento during this U.S. Open Cup final run, it feels like they're a team of destiny, and that they are a team that is going to not only win this U.S. Open Cup final, but also kind of give the middle finger toward their former owner Burko, and probably maybe the middle finger at Don Gabber too, of omitting them from coming to MLS for a very long time. In that, yeah, overall, I am very excited about this U.S. Open Cup final. I kind of was very tempting to go to this one, but unfortunately, flight tickets was just way too expensive to fly to Orlando. But nevertheless, I'm definitely going to be watching this on TV, and I'll definitely do a review in terms of talking about this game, because this is probably one, if not the most anticipated U.S. Open Cup that we have had for a very long time. And either way, somebody is going to make history. It's either Orlando City going to win their first ever trophy in their franchise history, or Sacramento is going to be becoming the first non-MLS team to win the U.S. Open Cup final since Rochester Rhino did it all the way back in 1999. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.